Yeah.
Shakir. All right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Namaste, assalamu alaikum, and good evening or good morning to all of you, depending on the time zone in which you live, because there are always people in this meeting from all parts of the world. I am Shakira Mohammed of Trinidad and Tobago, a teacher for the past 14 years, and this is the 144th edition of our Zoom public meeting. We wish to sincerely thank all those who have contributed in whatever way to the success of this ongoing Pan-Indo-Caribbean and Pan-Indian Diaspora Global Project. For 143 unbroken continuous weeks, we have been here every single Sunday. In the past 2 years, 11 months and 2 weeks, we have featured over 487 presenters from all parts of the world, speaking on 143 topics. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a weekly forum being hosted by the Indo-Caribbean Cultural Center, a legally registered research and publishing company operating since 2010. And like today, we often partner with the Amina Gafur Institute for the study of indentureship and its legacies, led by Professor David Davidine. In order to continue this weekly program and to make it bigger and better, we are asking that you kindly give us your suggestions as well as donations. And you can contact Dr. Kumar Mahabir for further details. At this time, we join our Hindu, Muslim, and Christian brothers and sisters in observing Holi or Pagwa, Ramadan, and Lent. Ramadan will start in the next few days, next 2 weeks apart, actually. So, ladies and gentlemen, our moderator this evening or tonight is Shalama Mohammed, the co-director of this Zoom platform, who is a business teacher and researcher from Trinidad and Tobago. She obtained her master's degree in business psychology from Franklin University in the USA. So Shalama, welcome and happy birthday to you today.
Thank you so much, Shakir. Namaste, everyone. Assalamu alaikum, and a very warm welcome. Thank you for choosing to spend this part of your Sunday or your Monday morning with us. So this public meeting will depart from the usual panel presentation format. Instead, it will take the form of conversations with some of our honored elders. So to you, the members of our audience, you are free to post questions or comments in the Zoom chat box, which is at the base of your computer screen. To avoid trolls from invading the program, our IT manager, Ravin Ramsingh, has muted everyone. Speakers, you are advised not to admit anyone, not to unmute anyone, and please don't allow anyone to share your screens. Thank you. So today's virtual event should not exceed 2 hours. And we are having live conversations, part 7, with Indian elders in the diaspora about long time days. So why are we doing this? Interviewing elderly people is important for several reasons. Firstly, it allows us to capture and preserve their life experiences and stories, which can be a valuable source of historical and cultural information. Secondly, it provides an opportunity to learn from the wisdom and insights that come with age and experience. Thirdly, it helps us to combat ageism by giving a voice to older adults and promoting intergenerational understanding and empathy. And finally, it can enhance our understanding of the aging process and inform policy decisions related to the needs and experiences of older adults. Ladies and gentlemen, our first elder today is Mr. Ramanand Busawa of Mauritius. He's 80 years old. He graduated with a degree in history from Punjab University in Chandigarh in India. Since his retirement in 2003, he goes daily to his field and is active in weekly Ramayana satsangs. Because of the differences in time zones between us and Mauritius, it's now about midnight there. We pre-recorded the conversation with him, and I'll ask Ravin to share that with you now. Ravin? So, Mr. Busawa, good morning. Well, it's late in the afternoon in Mauritius where you are, correct?
Good morning to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us, and I really appreciate your being here to share some of your life story with us.
Our
So we're just
pleasure.
going to, thank you. So we're just going to have a nice little chat. And I want to start off with you telling us a little bit about your parents. Now, you had shared with us that you were born on the 10th of October, 1943.
That's right.
Thank you. You also told us that your parents were Kuwar Singh Busawa and Pulbasia Gunga, correct?
Ganga.
Ganga. Sorry, Ganga. Right.
They
So
all,
tell me where your dad came from.
my dad was born in Mauritius, at the very place where I am living.
Mhm.
I'm living at Lalmati in the district of Flak, in the eastern part of Mauritius.
Mhm.
So
And your father was born there.
my father was born at Lalmati.
Okay.
It is
So
the,
his
it is
parents, what
it is a
about his
second,
parents?
it is a second village name, having name Hindi name in Mauritius, Lalmati.
Okay.
One
So
is,
there are only two places with Hindi names in Mauritius?
the other one is Brahmstan in Flak.
I
Both
see.
are in Flak.
I see. Okay. So is
The
it because
largest district of Mauritius. Flak is the largest district of Mauritius, found in the eastern part.
Okay. So is it that your grandparents came from India?
My grandfather was called Busawa. He gave his name to us. He passed on this name Busawa to his children. So I am called Busawa beside my Christian name, my first name, which is Ramanand Singh.
Right. So
He came, my grandfather was called Busawa Bhavani Pek, who left India. The place was Calcutta. He left Calcutta. He took the ship called Zuleika. He boarded the ship called Zuleika and took 1 month to reach Mauritius. It was in 1879. Get that?
yeah. So in 1879, he left India and he arrived in Mauritius 1 month later.
1 month later, he left.
1878, 15th August.
It's 1878. He left.
From Calcutta.
Yes, he left Calcutta on 15 August 1878 to reach Mauritius 15 September 1878.
Okay.
Same year.
Right. How old was he? How old? Do you
He
know?
was 2 years old.
Your grandfather?
Yes, he was 2 years old, and his brother, who was 10 years old, took him to Mauritius.
So they came with no parents to Mauritius?
No. Only these two, as they came as infants. My father was an infant.
So that's very unusual. I mean, in our records, we have immigration passes for each immigrant coming in from India, but the children would normally be accompanied by parents. So how did your grandfather and his 10-year-old brother get onto the ship?
How they came, mystery, and how they lived, survived, and grew up, miracle. Only miracle have supported them.
Miracle.
Of course, because
Wow.
an infant of 2 years and the elder brother 10 years, they managed to live in a country which was all hostile to them.
So, what do you remember about your grandfather?
I hardly remember because he died in 1941 or something like this.
Oh, I see.
1949. He died in 1949 when I was hardly 5 to 6 years old.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Tell me then about your father.
My father was born at Lalmati in Mauritius in the year 1898, 6 January, and he too died in 1949. What I know, he remained bedridden, though he was a father of 12 children. Mother, helped by other family members to rear cows, because this was the best occupation for survival in Mauritius at that time. And this was the main source of revenue. With the sum that they collected, they bought pieces of land, which I am cultivating and I am enjoying. That's about them.
Okay. So let me hear a little bit about your mother, Pulbasia Ganga. Who was this woman? Yes. Who was this woman who got married to your father and who would have raised 12 children almost by herself, I imagine, with her family members? Who was she? Was she born in Mauritius also?
Yes, she was born in Mauritius she was born in 1901. She was born in 1901 in November. And she would live up to the age 75 to die in 1975 when I was absent from the country.
Oh.
Regret for me.
I can imagine.
I was then in India for my BA, for my graduation in India, when she would pass away. Because I've given you the session, I attended college, Chandigarh College in Punjab, in Chandigarh, namely 1975, 1978. And she would die only 2 months later, after I left Mauritius.
And by that time, you would not have been able to come back.
Of course, no. Even the news, the sad news was given to me later.
Oh, I see.
But then the ash was sent to me to be thrown in the Ganges, and I did it.
But she must have been pleased about that, I'm sure.
It's all God's grace.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit about Chandigarh.
About
Chandigarh. You grew up.
Chandigarh was then the newly constructed city in Punjab, namely by the French architect. I lived there alone in a room. I did not live in hostel because I was already married when I went for further studies. I was the father of my 3 children. So I did not accommodate myself in any hostel. I lived in a private room.
So how does this young man from Mauritius, who would have grown up in an agrarian culture, learn about an opportunity in Chandigarh to be educated? And what was the process that got you to Chandigarh?
Well, when I started as a teacher at the secondary school I named Eastern College, I served for 11 years. And because of my performance, I was awarded a scholarship. I was awarded a scholarship for higher studies, so I went to India. Scholarship. I was awarded scholarship by the college for 3 years.
Quite an honor.
Thanks.
So you're at the time when you would have gone on to Chandigarh, did you know India at all? Did you know your past as an Indian?
Only the soul of India was known to me, no other part. And we considered that soil our mother. That's why we call Mother India.
When you had gotten to Chandigarh, were you amazed, or was it very familiar to you?
God familiar.
Okay, when you got to Chandigarh, were you amazed or overwhelmed with the Indian culture and the Indian way of life? Or was it comfortable for you because you were familiar with some things having come from Mauritius?
Well, namely Bihar, the language, being a Bihari, because my parents came from Bihar, I was proud of Bihar. Though at that time, the students of Chandigarh, they did not like Bihar origin students.
Why?
It was considered a backward state in India, a poor state in India. But I was asked to write some words about my liking for Bihar, and I praised the country and the culture and the language. And that was the Mahashivratri, glamorous. Mahashivratri is a glamorous festival with all its glamour and spirituality. But now this has been overshadowed.
By what?
Namely the youngsters, the youth, we still continue celebrating this festival. They do not wear what we used to wear, namely the white clothes, the dhoti, the loin clothes, the loin white clothes, the head kerchief, the white, namely a symbol of purity, humility of people from Bihar.
So they don't wear those things anymore. What are they wearing?
Yeah, namely pads. Now pads and colored.
Like Western clothes.
Colored t-shirts.
Colored t-shirts.
So this do not give the right picture of the Mahashivratri festival my father, my grandfather used to celebrate years back. Because they with this zeal, they built the temple, the Shiv temple in Lalmati. They built the Kali Mata. It is in my plot of land. It is in my plot of land that the village Kalimata is found. My grandfather namely gave this land, even a few birds, a few area, a little area, but this is still used today. My parent also gave the land for crematorium. All these are, they work with Brinda's grandparents.
I see.
With Brinda's parents and other people. They formed the association.
What association is this?
Well, an association, namely the village where the people they met to discuss matters concerning religion, namely concerning values, moral values. They sat under the banyan tree which shaded the Kalimata land. It is still there.
So if I were to come to Mauritius right now to a place called Lalmati, I would be seeing this Kali temple and I will be seeing this banyan tree as well.
Of course.
Can you describe this temple to me, please? Is it made of mud? Is it made of concrete? What does it look like?
Now, at the beginning, it was all empty, unshaded, unsheltered. It was just a land. It was just all around there were stones. All around there were stones of 3 feet high. Then the banyan tree was there. And the nine stones representing Kalimata in her various forms.
Oh, I see.
But now people have changed. They have constructed cement, shelter. They have put up statues, idols, they have. But people throng there. Weekends, festival days, people gather there, they throng there, one after other. People from other villages come.
So, Mr. Busawa, I want you to come back to a point. When your parents and Brinda's parents would have come together and the temple was built, there were no idols in the Kali temple?
No idol, only the stones.
Only the stone?
The stones, which you find in Bihar.
Oh, I see. Okay. So they would have brought over stone from Bihar to put in?
Yes, the stones, and then they sanctify the stones.
Okay.
And they started prayer.
So you participate a lot in Ramayana as well, I understand?
The Ramayana, we participate, yes.
Yes. It's a weekly satsang, weekly.
Oh, you have a weekly satsang there.
On what the day is Wednesdays. On Wednesdays we meet 40 to 50 people, mostly elderly people. Brinda is the youngest.
Hi, Brenda. So where are the youths? Where are your grandchildren? Where are the youngsters in the village?
They hardly they sit with me in the afternoon to hear me sing or to hear me explain. Hardly. Because they are not so familiar neither with the language nor with the ideas.
What language? You said they're not familiar with the language. So is it that the Ramayana is being done in Hindi, and what are they speaking?
But Hindi, they have studied Hindi in the primary, but they did not speak that.
What do they speak?
They speak the dialect in Mauritius, a mix of French, a mix of Hindi,
Right.
and other dialects.
I understand.
Okay.
Okay. So when you, for example, are in the temple, when you are explaining the Ramayana, what language are you explaining in?
Hindi, Bhojpuri.
Bhojpuri.
I explain Bhojpuri, but my other friends, my mother friends, they speak in Hindi.
Okay.
They use Hindi.
Oh,
But I'm comfortable with Bhojpuri.
okay. Right. And you speak Bhojpuri fluently with some of the others who come to have these Wednesday meetings?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I speak Bhojpuri with people of my age.
Okay.
People of my age. But with the younger people, I have to speak that mixture, that mixed language dialect.
So let's hear a little bit from, I'd like you to translate something and give us a little explanation of something from the Ramayana. So can we have Brinda, for example, sing something from the Ramayana and then you can explain it?
Okay.
Yeah?
Thank you, Shalima. So only 2 lines from Sundarkand, okay, which I like so much, which has lots of meaning. Okay. So तात वर्ग अपवर्ग सुखा धैर्य तुला एक अंग तुलन चाहे सकल मिले जो सुख लव सत्संग सियावर चंद्र की जय मावर शंभुनाथ की जय पवन सुत हनुमान की जय बोलो रे भाई सब संतन की जय.
It is a doha.
It is a dua.
It is a doha. Very different from what we call chaupa. Then we have got Sortha. That is, Tulsidas has written his Ramcharitmanas in a very particular way. What is that particularity about Ramcharitmanas? You can read it, you can sing every word in any tone you like, in any tone that pleases you. For example, Shankar Hari Om.
Shankar Hari Om Jai Jai Siya Ram.
Hare Om. Swarga apavarga sukha danai tula eka ang tulanatai sakal mili jo sukha. That's my tune.
So tell me can you tell me in English what Brinda was singing and what you were just singing?
This is a prasang, a verse that is found in Lanka.
And what does it mean?
Where Hanuman has reached early in the morning and he gets contact with the guardian of Lanka, of the city of Lanka. She is called Lankini. Her name is Lankini, the ogress. there is a fight, it's not completely body to body, but Hanuman is the one to give a blow with his fist to Lankini, and she bleeds. And when she bleeds, then she remembers what has been told to her by Lord Brahma when Lord Brahma was giving her a boon. Lord Brahma, what she remembered, that the day that one would give her a blow and she would be she would fell with blood, then she should know it will be the end of Lanka.
Oh, I see.
It is the end of Ravan.
So that little piece of song is very, very meaningful.
It is very meaningful.
Yes. So I want to say, thank you. I want to say thank you very much to Brinda for singing that, for choosing to share that with us. And at this stage, I just want to ask you, you've raised an important point with respect to the differences among the youths and the older generation in Mauritius. Where do you see Indian culture, Indian traditions and values going in Mauritius? Can you comment on that, please?
Indian culture and values. Indian culture and values, what's happening?
I mean, degradation.
Yes. Whatever is
That
happening.
is the loss of the value.
And what do you think can be done to revive this or revive interest in Indian culture and values and traditions?
Revive.
Yes.
You're asking for revival. Well, revival is hard because it is a mundane war. A world where everybody is running after job, after money. And hardly people think of their grandparents, even of the immediate father and mother. People hardly think, oh, once they grow up, they get a job, get married, they have their own house and their own way of living.
I see.
So because this alienation, this cutting off from the very root, from their parents, it will be difficult for them to continue with a tradition that has come down from elders.
Mr. Busawa, I want to thank you very much. You've raised a very, very important and valid point, and it's one that we in the Indian diaspora need to remember and to try to fix. So with that, I want to say thank you so much for sharing your life with us over the last half hour. We really appreciate it. And we will chat again with you very soon. I want us to have a part 2 of this conversation, but we will let you know as soon as we can do so, okay?
It is okay, but namely you have given a list of questions.
Yes, and we will discuss that at another time. But I really, really appreciate everything that you've shared with us. And I want to also say thank you so much to Brinda for connecting us and for facilitating today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Madam. Thank you, madam. Thank you, gentlemen.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Mr. Busawa from Mauritius, and a lot of food for thought in that particular conversation with him. So we are moving now from Mauritius to Trinidad and Tobago, and I would like to introduce you all to my father, Mr. Shahid Mohammed. Daddy is 86 years old. He's a former heavy equipment operator at the very short-lived company Trinidad Bagasse Products Limited, and he's been a farmer as well as all kinds of other things for most of his life. So his background will be discussed with Dr. Mahabir. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Papi, it's Pleasure again to have a conversation with you. And Shalima would have to give us a time check. We have 20 minutes because we can talk all night about your rich life and experience. So, but today I want to focus on your involvement in the sugarcane industry because in Indians, vast majority of Indians, almost all Indians, Indians came to work in the sugarcane plantations. So, and I understand that you started as a child. So give us that story from beginning to end.
Okay, well, I will begin with a little prayer.
Sure.
In the name of God, the gracious, the merciful.
Sure.
All praise is due to God, the Lord of the world, the beneficent, the merciful, Master of the day of judgment. Thee do we serve, and thee do we beseech for help. Guide us on the right path, the path of those on whom thou hast bestowed thy favor, not those upon whom wrath is brought down, nor of those who go astray. Amen. Yes, so I would begin by saying I was with my father in the sugar industry from a little boy. And he always, from the years 6 years old, he always carried me with him and showed me all what he is doing in the sugar industry, like planting, how he plants at that time, because we didn't have tractors. What we had was bull and mule. So he used to use the bull with a plow to make a rope, like the rice land. Then he would put, I was the eldest son, so he had me cutting the cane into 1 foot long. And that would be the plant to plant the sugar cane. So I would do that until he tells me, okay, this is enough for today. And this went on until some years passed by. And then I get into what we call the Island-wide Cane Farmers Association. And it's there I got a contract from Caroni 1975 Limited. And then I started on my own. At the age of 18. While being in the Cane Farmers Association, I was elected secretary of what we call branch number 11 of the Cane Farmers, Island-wide Cane Farmers Association. And there I started now as the secretary, keeping records. All the farmers in the area. And being there, it was not permanent. So I had to do part-time work here, part-time work there. And then I get into Woodford Lodge Estate, working for Sir Harold Robinson. And being here now, I had 2 jobs to do. Work at the estate and come and work for the Island-wide Cane Farmers in the village. So this is where I got involved with the farmers And you have many of the farmers who never had contract, but they planted sugarcane and used to be selling it on another farmer name. But they only get pay for one of the, in cane farming, we have what you call a back pay, because they never paid you until the sugar is sold. So we used to have to wait. You get a full pay to carry on your business. And then you get a back pay at the end of the year. And many farmers never get the back pay. They only get the first pay. So when the island-wide cane farmers started, I inquired in my village how many people sell cane in another man's name. I take the record. And there is where I went to get those farmers a contract for themselves. And I succeeded. As the secretary of the branch, the people is the one who tell me, look, we want you to be the secretary of the branch. So I accepted. I keep records. And I get the contract for the farmers, so they never lose the back pay.
And then with Woodford Lodge.
And that was with the Woodford Lodge Estate Company Limited. So Harold Robinson Estate in Chaguanas. Then
What you did in Woodford Lodge?
In Woodford Lodge, I managed to get in
Service the tractors.
as a tractor greaser. I started greasing the tractor with the pump, the grease and oil and checking the engine and so. And from there, in about 2 months' time, I was offered a job to drive a tractor. And there I went. I didn't back, although I didn't know much, but I did. Start to drive the tractor and use the plow to plow the land. And then so Harold Robinson said that I am doing fine. So I continued for a period of time.
There was what new fields.
And then he started this estate at Todd's Road and sent me there now to bulldoze forest. And there I get more acquainted with the tractor. So I bulldozed the forest in Todd's Road. And then he said, plow the lands. I plowed the lands. Then he said, now you will have to work a grader, which is the motor grader, and form the beds 22 feet wide. You're making 2 drains at the end. When you measure 22 feet, you cut the drain equally. So there I started now. I get onto this motor grader, not knowing much of it, but I learned. I started to drive it. I learned motor grading more in the sugar industry. And so I was employed all along for a period of time in plowing the land. Not yet. As I know to bank the land now. You make bank and you plant in the farrow.
But Papi, before we move there, tell us about your involvement in the bagasse plant.
Oh, well,
In the sugarcane industry.
it's nice to tell you about the bagasse plant. The first day I get work at the bagasse plant is the day Shalima born.
Wow, quite interesting. Happy birthday, Shalima.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, so I went there, other people came there. I heard they given a driver's work. I went. Said, well, I would get a permanent job. I went with hope. And in there was the engineer guy who was there giving us a test. I passed the test, the driving test. I passed the test of reversing the trailer.
How is linked with the bagasse linked with the sugarcane estate?
Well, I will explain that.
Okay.
So from there now, the bagasse plant used to send the trailers now to Caroni Limited nearby to collect bagasse and bring it to the bagasse plant. So Caroni had bagasse where you get from the sugarcane, and bagasse plant, we used to go now and have a load in the trailer. And we used to bring that to the bagasse plant, and we passed it through a belt, wash it, let it pass through a dryer. When it dries, after passing through the dryer, now it goes to a belt and spread on a machine there to make the board, the whole board. The board was 8 feet by 18 feet, bagasse board. But we had 3 different types of board. We had a 6 millimeter, we had a 16 millimeter, and we had the 18 millimeter board for the different purpose.
What was the board used for?
Making furniture.
Okay.
Walls for houses.
And walls. People put up walls with the board. Well, it's 18 feet long, but it must be only inside, not outside. So it must not get wet to swell. And that is what they were using the 18 millimeter board for. So after working some period of time in bagasse plant, I would have to say it, and the Eric Williams government said that they cannot continue with the bagasse plant. So they shut it down. And when they shut it down, I said, okay, well, I started now with a different farmer issue. I started to plant tomatoes, edos, dasheen, rice. And there is where I made changes. And it didn't take long after. This present Prime Minister said that the sugar industry is not feasible. So they shut down the entire sugar industry.
And was that a good thing or bad thing? Do you think it should have been shut down? The sugar industry, Caroni Limited?
No, we buying sugar from Guyana. Why are we buying sugar from Guyana? You didn't do it in a manner. You had 3 factories. You shut down all 3 at one gulp. 3 factories shut down, no sugar industry. When we could have one factory working and make changes now in the agricultural sector. So a man who planted plenty cane, he would come down with a lower amount of cane, and we would grow canes for the what we call the for the island, for our island, enough sugar for the people of the country.
Yes, so he closed down all the sugar factories, every single one, instead of leaving 1 or 2 for local production and consumption.
Right. So today, up to today, we are still buying sugar from Guyana. They didn't shut down.
Yeah.
You had Barbados shut down because of the international sugar market.
Right.
So they stopped buying our sugar. And as of today,
You were actively involved with the sugar workers, sugar farmers, and so on. Did you know or did you interact with Bade Sagan Maharaj personally, and later on Pandey, because they were the trade union leaders in the sugar industry?
well,
That personal interaction.
I had personal interaction with bodies when I was a little boy. But he also was representing sugar. Right? And when he left, after Mr. Pandey get those who work in the sugar industry and form the all Trinidad Sugar
Or Trinidad Sugar and Factory Workers Trade Union.
Factory Worker Trade Union.
Yeah.
And I work with him because I used to be, you always have a team from this factory doing this, a team from the other factory and whatever. And we were part of Pandey's union. And we were,
there are a lot of negative things said about Badis as a trade union leader. Tell me your opinion.
He was a leader, what people say is, but educationally, he did not know of the full working of the Tate and Lyle, how they operate. And he didn't have that education like Pandey. Pandey went and investigated Tate and Lyle from England, coming right back. And then he is the one who knows fully well how the sugar is sold, how the factory works, and he also knows the workers working. So he had a better way of handling the sugar industry. But in everything after a period of time, people say they don't want him to represent them again. Right? When he leaves, so too was the government closing down the sugar industry.
Now, people said that Badis was not working in the interests of the sugar workers and so on, sugar farmers. Is that true? That he was really more in favor of Tate and Lyle and the government, that he was not seeking the interests of those in the sugar industry. Is that true?
No, that is not true. He was seeking the interest of the workers as of what, at the time, what was necessary to do and his education. You couldn't tell Mr. Badis Maharaj about the quality of the juice. He was not a chemist. But Pandey educated himself to know more.
Yeah.
And this is how he managed to know everything about the sugar industry.
Right. So let's move to, because we have just a few minutes again, I think about 5 minutes. Your involvement in the tobacco industry. There are people who know very little. And I think Shalima is pursuing research on that. She has gone to the barns and taken photos and interviewed people. I think she is almost 3/4 way finished doing that research on the history of the tobacco industry in Trinidad. I understand you were involved. Tell us from the beginning to the end in 5 minutes.
The West Indian Tobacco Company, at one period of time, the government said, don't buy tobacco from outside countries. We can grow tobacco here. Well, that is how West Indian Tobacco said, okay, they get the farmers, and they help the farmers build the curing house, we call it. So all of us planted, we get contract. Just like the cane industry, we get a contract to supply. But they give us the know-how now. When you pick it from the planting stage to the selling stage to them, all what we have to do with grow it up, then pick it, then cure the leaves and bring it in this barn, this high barn. We use how you call it, the cooking gas, and we light the heat from below. You have 6 stove,
Yeah.
6 stove, lighting from below slowly and giving the heat in the night. And you have to leave that there 3 days. After 3 days, you check. If the stem is dry, then you take it down. Because the stem used to take longer to dry. So when you see the stem is not dry, you open the heat a little more. And you dry the stem, and then you leave it to cool for 1 night. Then you move the stove on them from there, and you start to take down and put it down when the weather is cool. If you take it down when the weather is hot, the tobacco leaves crumble. And it don't remain a leaf anymore. It crumbles itself. Then you can't sell. Now they have us what you call grading the tobacco. We grade it and tie it in small bundles. 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade. And there is where the tobacco company makes more money on our head, because the buying system deprives us of the true price of the tobacco. And when farmers get fed up of the system, we stop planting in Trinidad. The farmers themselves stop planting because of the price system.
Okay. So you have been a farmer most of your life. Tell me how the cultivation of tobacco, the planting of tobacco is different from planting. You plant cocoa, orange, banana, tomato. How is the planting, the cultivation of tobacco different?
Well, you plow the field. You have to what you call lime the soil, right? The company supply the lime. You throw the lime on the soil. When you've done that, now you rotate it, find the soil. Then you bank the soil. We used to use what you call a drainer in the center of the bank. Every farmer didn't have it, but I had it. And
what is that drainer? A drain?
Right, yes.
Machine, okay.
Now, in that drain, you plant in the tobacco. And there is where you don't have to use so much water. Because only if you get rain, well, you're lucky. If you don't get rain, you're wet with holes. You have a pump. And you pump the water now, like other plants. And after 3 days, you fertilize with not sulfate of ammonia, or what you use for tomatoes. You use a different fertilizer to grow that tobacco. That tobacco will grow until it starts to flower. When it starts to flower, the below leaves start to dry. Right. And there is where now you come and pick the leaves that is ripening.
How high would that tree grow?
That tree will go approximately 10 feet.
Wow. So how do you cut the top? The leaves, you're cutting the whole tree, or
No. You only pick any leaves.
Okay.
And when you see it reach very small leaves, you don't pick it anymore. And then you have to go now, either you brush cut it, or you put people to cut down the trees and put it in heap and burn it. When it dry, you burn that. And one of the things that happened is that where you plant tobacco, you cannot plant tomato. You cannot plant sweet pepper.
Right.
Because tobacco easy to get them. What we call it disease. There is a disease in the plant itself.
I see.
So
Nematode.
the damage to soil.
Where tobacco is, nematode right. And that is why they stop, or we ourselves stop planting, because when you, in the tobacco time, we couldn't grow tomatoes nowhere. And that is one of the reasons. Plus the pricing was bad. And this is what makes us stop planting.
So two final questions. The barn that was built to dry the tobacco, how big was that? It's made out of bricks?
Well, some people make brick barns because it keeps the heat inside. But the tobacco company used galvanized. And at the end, where you're nailing the galvanized now, there is a certain padding you used to use where you lean the galvanized and nail it down on that, so the heat wouldn't escape. So you had two ways of it.
Which one was better? The
Barns were better.
okay.
You use less gas, because in the galvanized barn, gas escape no matter how you am. But with the brick barn, it holds the heat inside, so you use less gas.
So how many barns did you own or manage or build? Tell me about the barns you were in charge of.
I was in charge of 4 barns. Because
You built them.
I planted 4 acres in tobacco.
What, Freeport area? Freeport?
Freeport area, yes, my own property.
Okay.
I still have that property as my own.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how big were these barns in terms of size?
20 feet by 16 feet. That was the size of the barn.
So a few years ago, driving through, I think in that area, I saw people converted the barns into houses because the industry has died.
Well, I want to tell you, just where my land is, by the roadside, Hardale Maharaj had built the brick barns. And you have people now living in that barn. And they have the way when you set it up, you make your step ladder go up, and you could have your rooms from the inside, because it used to be 20 feet high.
You have upstairs.
So you have upstairs and you have a downstairs.
Right. So 2 small questions now. In the chat, somebody asked, did the cultivation of tobacco encourage people to smoke?
I would say yes. Young boys who planting, right? They're working in the tobacco industry, right? Picking the leaves and so. They're wrapping the leaf and lighting it and smoking it.
Right, good.
From the parents.
Right. And final question, did the majority of farmers in the tobacco industry, were they Indians? Majority?
Majority.
Okay.
Yeah, majority.
Like what percent? You want to give a percentage? 70, 80, 60?
90.
90%. Okay, so thank you very much, Papi. It was very informative. It's good to have you here, and probably we'll have you again because you have so much of a rich history to tell and to share. And it's new information to us, especially about your days in the sugar industry and your opinion, particularly about the sugar industry should not have been closed down totally. And your information about the tobacco industry. Okay, Shalima, over to you now. Thank you, Papi.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Dad and Dr. Mahavir. I got some insights there as well. Although we hear stories from Daddy all the time, I got some insights there too. So thanks so much. So ladies and gentlemen, we are going to move on now to someone who was born in South Africa and then migrated to the US. And this is Dr. Dharamraj Nirmal. He's 80 years old. He did his surgical training in Durban and worked after as a clinical and academic surgeon. He emigrated to the US in 1988, where he did another residency in surgery. It's a pleasure to have you with us, sir. Can you unmute, please? You're still muted. Robin, can you unmute Dr. Dharam Nirmal, please?
No, he will have to unmute. Right.
Okay, got it.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
Very nice. So, how old were you when you decided on medicine?
Okay, probably about 17, 18.
And what made you decide to do medicine?
Actually, I wanted to do law initially. But I think one of my elder brothers was in med school, and I think that changed my mind because he took me around to many of the things he was doing as a student, and he took me to the medical school to some lectures and stuff, and probably that influenced my change.
So your parents had 2 boys in medicine, or were there more?
Sister was also in medicine.
Okay. How did your parents feel about this?
Well, when my older brother went into medicine, I don't think he had any qualms about that, though he was not very well off. But, he did manage to send him to medicine. And when my turn came, he was a bit hesitant because he didn't have finances. But fortunately, I was granted a bursary to study medicine. So that is how I got into med school.
Okay, I need you to speak just a little bit louder for us, please. So I understand that you were able to get a bursary and that's how you went to medical school.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Would you mind sharing with us a little bit about what your family background is? What kind of activities your mom and dad were involved in Durban?
Firstly, I'd just like to trace my ancestry.
Sure.
So my great-great-grandfather, his name was Paku Shukla. He was age 25 when he landed in South Africa in 1878. Ship named Glenroy and departed from Calcutta.
What is the name of the ship again?
Glenroy II.
Glenroy II. Okay. Mm-hmm.
And he was from a district which is now in UP. At that time, there were no designated states in India. It was the Northeast Territory. And a village called Durabusi, which is like 220 kilometers east of Varanasi. We have that record.
Have you ever been to the village?
I haven't been, but my second cousin has been, and he has investigated this. Given me the information.
You still have relatives there?
Probably, but I don't know them.
Okay. And your mother, where did your grandmother, sorry, come from?
I'm not sure where they are from, because we don't have any records from that side.
Okay, Dr. Nirmal, I'm being advised that our audience cannot hear you clearly. Would you mind just being a little bit louder, please?
Okay, I'll get nearer the mic.
Right, thank you. Okay, so your father came from an area, your grandfather, sorry.
Great-grandfather.
Great-grandfather would have come from an area close to Varanasi. He would have come straight to South Africa, but was he there under an indentured immigrant contract?
Yes, he was an indentured laborer, and he was allocated to a sugar company, a person called Shires in the area at that time known as Newtown, but which is now called Phoenix, which is close to Durban. And in fact, there are a lot of Indians living in Phoenix at this time.
Okay, so a lot of you all would have settled in the Phoenix area. What did your father do? Was he also involved in sugarcane in some way?
No, no. My father lived with my grandfather in another town close to Durban called Mount Vernon, where they had a farm of this farm was probably given to them at the end of the indenture. And he had a farm of bananas and pineapples. And it appears he had quite a good farm because he used to export the fruit on, to various people via freight train, which passed close to the house. So they had a station for him where he could load his stuff. Yeah.
Has anyone continued with that farm?
Actually, my cousin, my father's brother's son, still lives in that same house where they lived. And he has a small farm, but the rest of the land has been sold. So he doesn't have the farm anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How much land was occupied?
At that time,
Mm-hmm.
it was quite a few acres, I think.
Do you know whether that land?
I've been there to the farm as
Oh,
a child.
Oh,
Yeah.
as a child, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about your mother.
Okay. My mother was a housewife. She didn't go to school. But she did know how to sew, and she thought my father tailored it. So my
Mhm.
father
Mhm.
actually became a tailor.
Mhm.
Tell you more about it, but what's your next question?
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing you.
No, I'm waiting for your question.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay. So your mother used to sew to augment the family income, I imagine.
Probably, because I don't remember that. I was told this. In my childhood, I don't remember her doing any sewing or like a business. No.
Mhm.
But she did do her own for herself.
Okay. So what do you remember most about Indian culture within that family?
Okay. My dad was very learned in Hindi, and actually he learned to read Hindi when he was 4 years old. This is what I'm told. Obviously encouraged by my grandfather, who was also well read in Hindi.
Mhm.
And what I remember well is, he because he was so educated in Hindi, he was like a counselor, advisor to the local people around us. My uncles and aunts were always coming to him for advice. If there were some religious functions, he would be there and help out. He used to read the Ramayana at various functions. And I remember if somebody died and they wanted somebody to read the Ramayana, he would go and do that.
Has that habit of reading the Ramayana come down in the grandchildren?
No.
No?
No.
Any idea why?
Well, actually, one of my brothers does read the Ramayana. I went to Hindi school. I can read and write Hindi. And my parents and his friends organized a Hindi school for their kids at that time, and we did go, and we did learn to speak, to read and write Hindi. And one of my brothers tells me that he does read the Ramayana. So it has been passed on, I'd say.
Okay. So Dr. Nirmal, you were practicing in Durban, and then you came across to the US and you had your practice there. Can you share a little bit about ethnic relations back in Durban? Was there any difference in the number of people or the ethnicity of your potential clients? Did anybody mind that you were an Indian?
Okay. We lived in the apartheid times. So all the races were divided into various groups. I went to a medical school. It was only for non-whites, that means Indians, people of mixed race, and blacks, the local black population. Our teachers were of mixed group, whites, Indians, and blacks. We worked in a hospital which was entirely for non-white people, although the doctors were all of mixed race groups, various race groups. So my practice was mainly with non-white patients. Now, later in my career, when I became skilled in certain aspects of surgery, and I used to specialize in breast cancer surgery, and I did a lot of research in that field also. So when people heard about my abilities, they would invite me to operate on patients in the white hospitals. Although I could not work there permanently, they would invite me to come to the operating theater and help them to do certain kind of surgeries.
Did this open any new opportunities for you? Or was it essentially making use of your knowledge, your capacity, and so on?
Basically, that was it. Yes.
Is that one of the reasons why you decided to shift from South Africa to the US?
Yes, that is one of the reasons. The other reason, of course, is the political unrest in the country at the time. My kids were like ready to go to for higher education, to colleges. There was so much strife and unrest in college campuses at that time. So we thought it was better for us if we left the country. Also, what influenced me was I had siblings in the United States already who had left long before we left the USA, like 20 years before me. Two brothers who left South Africa to go to the USA. And they had long foresight and they knew what was going to happen in the future, most likely.
Yeah.
It is.
So coming from South Africa during a period of unrest, moving into the US, how was your integration into that American society?
Okay, we came, although I was highly qualified as a surgeon, I was a lecturer in surgery, I was teaching surgery to doctors. When I came to the US, I mean, none of that counted anymore. I was like starting from level 1 again. Because I couldn't get a job in the US as a surgeon without doing a training in surgery again. So that is what I did. And once I did that, I was open to do anything I wanted, go wherever I want, practice wherever I wanted. So I didn't have any restrictions placed on me at that time.
Have you been back home?
Many times. Yes.
What was the duration of time between your having left to go to the US and returning home?
Okay, well, the first time we went back home was many years later after we had landed here. So I'd say like 10 years later.
10 years.
Yeah, because we had to settle down, do my training, get a job, stuff like that, and then go back to visit the homeland.
So that was 10 years after you had left, and now you've been in the US for how many years?
33 years.
What is your view of South Africa at this point in time?
I think it's a troubled country. They have a lot of issues to settle, South Africa. It's economically not doing very well. There's a lot of corruption. Although people are living well, but I think they're living in fear of the future.
You said that you still have a relative running the family farm there at this time.
No, he doesn't have a farm anymore.
Oh, okay.
The farm has been sold out.
Okay.
He has the house.
All right. What would you advise young people of Indian descent who are living in South Africa at this point in time? I may be putting you on the spot.
Yes.
You can choose not to answer if it's very uncomfortable for you.
I think if they can afford it, I think they should immigrate. A lot of them are doing it. If they cannot, well, they have to make the best of it, keep themselves safe.
So if they were to migrate, where should they go to?
Well, there are various countries that are, available. If they're well qualified, Canada, USA, Australia. USA is a little difficult, but if they have the finances, they can come. I suppose India.
So some youths of Indian descent who are South African, who hold on to Indian values and their culture and so on. Yes. Would they be able to maintain that in the US or in Canada?
Yes. I mean, we have Indian values. We regularly have bhajans in our homes, and we have a bhajan group, Sai bhajan group. I I play tabla, I play harmonium. I used to play sitar, but I'm not playing it now because you need to play it all the time, to keep in practice. So I do all those things. Yeah.
And what about your children?
My children, I have a daughter who's a occupational therapist. She's PhD in social in occupational therapy. I have a son who's an attorney, and a younger son who's in IT.
Well done. So how involved are they in Indian culture in the US?
Not very much. They celebrate Diwali. I think that to get the young people involved in culture, Indian culture, is to do the fun things like Diwali and Holi, and then they read about what it's all about. They may get some interest, but presently, I don't see much involvement.
How do you feel about that? Is that something that you understand, you're comfortable with?
It doesn't really bother me because I know later on they will come back. They will come back.
That's interesting. What makes you so sure?
Because I've seen it happen. I've seen that happen. In fact, my granddaughter, who just went to college, she's second year, the elder one, and the first one is in the second eldest granddaughter is in the first year. And I just heard that she's become interested in the activities that the Indian students are involved with. So she's going back there. Yeah.
So there's something in the Indian DNA that brings us back to Indian culture.
I think so. I think definitely there is.
All right, excellent. So I want to thank you very much for sharing all that you have and for that little assurance that at some point, no matter where we are, Indian culture will bring us back.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so there we have Dr. Nirmal, who would have migrated from South Africa. And we are now moving on to a South African who remains in South Africa. And this is 87-year-old Mr. Ramnarayan Shobalak. He is formerly a teacher. His father would have migrated from Uttar Pradesh in India to work as an indentured underground worker in the coal mines while living in the barracks. His father was a singer and a traditional healer. So let's chat a little bit. Actually, we did a pre-recorded conversation with Mr. Shobalak, although he is with us in the audience. We just wanted to make sure that there was no issue with the load shedding that would interrupt us. So I'll ask Ravin to please bring on that pre-recording now. And you are welcome to make your comments or ask any questions in the chat because he is indeed here with us. Ravin, please. So I want to thank you very much for sparing the time to come and to chat with us today.
My pleasure.
So I've been reading your bio and it's very, very interesting. Your father actually came and he would have been from the village of Gonda in UP.
Yes.
Our ancestors came from UP as well. And he would have, so your father would have worked as an underground worker in the coal mine, is that correct?
Yes, correct. And then later, he moved on to working on the surface of the mine. He worked first in the underground, then he transferred and went onto the surface of the mine. You understand that?
Yes. So during the period in the mine, while he was working in the mine, there were barracks for these workers to live in.
Yes, correct.
Did you grow up in the barracks?
Yes, I grew up in the barracks.
Can you
now
describe
let
your
me
barracks?
let me tell you a little more about this barracks. Okay, would that be okay?
Of course.
Oh, okay. But see, first of all, when my father came with my paternal grandmother, with his sister. He had a sister with him, right? And when they came here to South Africa, they were sent to a mine called St. George's Colliery near a place called Hackings Road. So then my father lived over there for a while. Then my father moved to a place called Burnside, which belonged to the Dudley Coal Company. Now here, there were a number of barracks, and also in the area, there were also people who built their own homes and lived when there wasn't enough place in the barracks. But we were fortunate enough, we had two big rooms in the barracks. The barracks were about 2 rooms. Each room was about 14 feet by about 10 feet, right? And I'm talking in the terms of feet and all, feet and inches, right? Now we were 11 children in the family, and my father worked in the mine, and because he was a mine worker, he was entitled to weekly rations. That some grocery items like in those days there was no rice because of the Second World War, 1939 to 1945, and moved on to about 1950. So the mine gave us in those days, I think what was made from mealies was called mealie rice. And they also gave us split peas and some other gross items that could use for cooking. And that helped to augment my father's salary. With he had a very, very small salary. Now, I'd like to tell you the name of the ship that my father came in. Is that okay with you?
Yes, definitely.
Give the name of the ship. My father's was, I think, Amlazi.
Your father's was Amzinto.
Oh, no, my father's ship that he came in was Amzinto. And my father came here to South Africa in 1907. He came with my paternal grandmother because my paternal grandfather had passed away in India. So my paternal grandmother came with my father, who was about 7 years old at the time, and came with his sister, right, who was about 5 years old. And then they came, we lived in the barracks in Burnside, what we refer to as compound or barracks, and we had 2 rooms. We were 11 children in the family, right, all together, okay.
Yes,
and,
Mr. Ramnarayan, before you go on, your grandmother, did she sign a Garmitia contract?
Yes, yes.
She did.
That's how I got the ship list, you see. Chandra got the ship list here with him. That's why they came to South Africa. They came on that Gilbert story, right? That contract story, you know, the details of what was given in those days, right? Where they could go work for so many years, and after so many years, they could return to India, things of that type, right? I think you know the details of that. Right?
That's fine.
Now, we lived in the barracks, okay. And then in the barracks, we had only 2 rooms. And we didn't have a private bathroom. There was one little corner where there's a little hole place which was cemented, and that was used as our kitchen. And there was one corner where we had a bath. So for privacy, we had ordered to move away outside for the bathing time, or move into another room and stay around there till the person who was having a bath could finish up. Now, I want to tell you about, we had a few cattle, and that helped us with the milk in the house. Now, our breakfast, that time, remember, as I told you, my father earned a very meager salary, and the rations helped to build us up. Now, because we had that few cattle, we had milk in the house. So the milk was every morning and evening, we milked the number of cows that were giving milk at that time. Then my mother boiled the milk, and the extra milk we sold to get a couple of extra rands so we could buy some necessary items like tea leaves and so forth. Right. Then we find that we couldn't afford butter. Then my mother used to boil that milk on the coal stove because it was cold. There was a coal mine on the coal stove, and then she used to leave that milk to boil for some time, and the cream used to form on top of the milk. Now the same cream we used, each one of us in the family had a quarter piece of thick roti, and we used that cream on that roti as our butter. We had, of course, personally myself, I had no shoe. And with the mornings, when there was frost on the ground, we ran, my brother and I ran into the fields to look for the cattle, rounded up the cattle, milked them, and then we had our little breakfast we had, and we went to school. Of course, everything barefoot, no coat, no jersey. We went barefoot. Now, one of the barracks was set aside as a. So in the school, we had starting off, like when I was a little boy, when I first went to school, in those days they didn't have preschool and kindergarten. They had what we call baby class, right? And then from baby class, we moved on to class 2 until we went to standard 6. And when I passed standard 6, now we didn't have a high school there in Burnside, where we lived. So I had to walk about 10 kilometers to a place called Glencoe, and then take a bus for another about 10 kilometers to get to a high school in a place called Dundee. And that is where I completed my matric, and then I went on to Springfield Training College in Durban, where I trained as a teacher for 2 years. And then I started teaching in the year 19, which year I started teaching? 1960. 1960. I started teaching in 1960. And then I taught in a number of schools in our area. And then I retired in 1991. We were given early retirement because they wanted to make place for other teachers. Now, when I was retired, I had taught some of the Muslim children here in our school when I was a specialized infant teacher, mostly in the infant department, primary school infant department. And then when I retired, there's a business people, and they asked us to teach the Maulanas English, because many of them came from Gujarat. They couldn't speak English, and they had to. That was a setup in South Africa now. Practically everybody spoke in English. Very few people spoke the vernacular. So these Maulanas had to learn English so they could get through to the students in the madrasa. So for a number of years, I taught a number of Maulanas who came from India, mostly from Gujarat. And then now in my retirement, I spent my time in gardening. I love gardening. And I also love reading. Then I used to read books on gardening, but my main thing was to read religious books. So I also spent some time reading like our religious books like the Ramayana, Mahabharata, and of course I concentrated more on the Bhagavad Gita, because that we got to know was the main teaching from the Mahabharata, was the Bhagavad Gita, and that was the essence of our Hindu religion. So later in years, first of all, I was in the Ramakrishna movement, and I find that sometimes later I got to know about Sri Satya Sai Baba, right, in about 1983, when I went to Durban in 83 for an ordination course, and I went to a home where I saw some miraculous things taking place there, where holy ashes on pictures and other things materializing in that home. And that person there had envelopes kept on a shelf, and she gave me one of the envelopes, to seal envelope. She asked me to look into the light. And when I looked into the light, I see there was holy ashes inside that envelope. So my first thought was, hey, I think this auntie must have used steam or something, opened the envelope and filled it. So what I did, I got my children to write letters, and I went and kept it there on one Tuesday. And another Tuesday, I went and picked these letters up, and I found holy ashes inside these envelopes, right? And as I told you, now as I began to see these miraculous happenings, I began to find out more and more about Sai Baba. So the first book that I read about Sai Baba was Sai Baba, Man of Miracles by Howard Murphy. And then I got a good idea of that. And then I also read Sai Baba Avatar. Okay. And then subsequent to that, I read a number of books like Satya Sai Speaks. And then now after reading these books, I was so inspired that after seeing all these miraculous things where I went to, I was determined to go to India, to Prashanti Nilayam, the abode of the highest peace. So in 1988, December, I went, and I came back in 1989. I went there to Sai Baba's ashram. I spent a number of days there, and 22nd December, I left the ashram, and then we were going to Mysore. Now, on the way to Mysore, we came across, and we came to a place where there was a person by the name of Holigappa. He had an ashram there, this thing, right? And when I went in there, I saw holy ashes also on the frames of pictures of Sai Baba and other deities. And then that person placed a pendant, he had a pendant of Sri Satya Sai Baba and a pendant of Shivjika Sai Baba, and he wiped it, he had it kept in a big jar, and he pulled it out and he placed it on my hand, placed one of them, the Satya Sai Baba's pendant, on my palm. And I actually saw the ambrosia oozing out of that pendant and filling my palm. Then he pulled my palm with a tablespoon and gave me to taste it. Well, it had a heavenly taste. Well, at that time, I didn't know the word like ambrosia. I referred to it as honey. And that further inspired me to know more about Baba. Now, let me tell you about our setup here in South Africa. Now,
hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second, please. Mr. Ramnarayan, I want you to come back a little bit because I want to know a little bit about your family life. You said you went these trips and so on. I know that you have children. Tell me a little bit about your wife. How did you meet your wife? And was this while you were living in the barracks? How did you move from the barracks to where you are now? Or are you still living close to the barracks?
No. Okay. Now, I will tell you, in 1953, the coal mine in Burnside closed down. And then gradually we had to move out from there. So in 1954, we came to a town here called Glencoe. Now that is where I'm presently residing. Well, with God's grace, I was able to build a home here, and my family and I are living here. And
tell me how you met your wife.
Right, I'll tell you now. It was once Saturday evening at a friend's house. There was a Hardi function on. Now, you know what I'm talking about, Hardi function, right? Okay. You know, when they apply the turmeric and so forth, right? Now, I'm sure you're aware of things like that. So when I went to that Hardi function, it was in the evening. And I saw my wife over there. And her beautiful eyes actually attracted me to her. And when I looked carefully, and I saw her smile. I was really taken aback by her exquisite beauty. Right. Then I approached the relatives in that house to know who this person was, and then I asked them to contact the relatives, and that is how I proposed to them, and I got married. But by
So hold on.
yes.
Hold on one second.
Carry on.
Yes, so you would have not asked your wife to get married. You asked her family to get married, correct?
Yes, correct. Then
so when did you first have a conversation with her?
Right now we went, with our Indian setup, how we go with a formal proposal and so forth. Okay, went there, and the formality of she bringing the tea and all that you're talking, right? Okay, then I had a chance to have a chat with her. Okay, and the family seemed to be quite happy. Then I spoke to my wife, right? Just casually, of course. On a farm. That was my wife lived on a farm about 23 miles from Peter Marisburg, and I live in Glencoe, and we'll say about 125 kilometers or something away. And that is how, when her parents and brothers and sisters were quite happy with the whole proposal, then we went on to arrangements of the wedding and so forth.
And can you tell me what that wedding was like in South Africa?
Yes, let me tell you, not different from the weddings that take place in India, because remember, our priests got knowledge from India, right? The others came and then taught them, and then we had, of course, our priest. We had the tilak, right? First, a week or two before. Then on the wedding day, we had the priest there, and of course, my wife and I, we sat together, and the priest, and of course, my youngest brother acted as a saibala, the brother of the bridegroom, right? And then the priest, of course, did his mantras and so forth, of course, which I did not understand, because I didn't understand all those mantras, right? But he explained to us in English that, see, these formulas are very, very sacred, and listen to them carefully, and these formulas will bless your wedding. Anything else that you'd like to know?
Yes. What did you wear?
Oh, I wore a suit. And you see, the tradition was with our people, I don't know how is it elsewhere, but the brother-in-laws, made a suit for me, right? And that is how I had a suit. And well, fortunately, we were able to attire myself with a nice shirt, tie, and so forth, and got to the wedding.
Okay, so what did your dullahin wear?
Pardon?
What did the dullahin wear?
Well, a sari, her sari.
Red?
And of course, she looked very beautiful in a sari. After the wedding, she went and changed into another sari, and she looked absolutely beautiful in that sari. Anything else?
Yes. Was she employed when you got married?
No. My wife never worked. You see, because they lived on the farm, they didn't have opportunity for schooling. So my wife only went to about standard 4 level, right? And then they had to leave school because other children from the family had to go to school, and they had to go by car, and they couldn't accommodate so many. So the minimum education they got was about standard 4. But
I see. So tell me a little bit about her parents.
Let me tell you about this thing there. Her father had a farm. They were living on the farm. So the family members there who were there at home assisted in the farm itself, running the farm. And then, now to augment my salary, my wife sold cosmetic products like Vanda products and so forth, and she was doing very well. And I used to join her and go along to speak to customers. And as I told you, my wife was very well educated, but when she came and joined me, then she saw me reading and she took interest in reading as well. So she started reading religious books like the Mahabharata, Ramayana, and fortunately, my wife had knowledge of Hindi. So she reads the Ramayana in Hindi, whereas I read the Ramayana and Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita in English.
I see. Now, her father, you said, operated a farm.
Yes.
Your father came into the barracks and was living in a coal mine. So I'm trying to figure out how those two were different. How did they come by the farm whilst you all would have come by the coal mine? Did her father or grandfather also migrate from India as indentured workers?
No, my father-in-law was late by the time I went to see my wife. Okay, whereas her mother was living and her other relatives were living together. She had a big brother and other younger brothers and sisters, and they were all living together, and they all assisted in the farm.
Right, but you don't know how her family would have come from India.
My mother's my wife's grandfather came from India, but I don't know the details of them because I concentrated on my side of the family. Because
I got the information.
I got the ship list here, which I picked up from Durban. The ship list with the details of the name of the ship in which my father came and my mother came. Can Shaladra just read out the ship list to you quickly?
That would be nice.
Read it out.
I'll tell you more about my maternal grandfather. Okay, he came from, his grandfather came from India, right? I'm just putting out the ship list. I'm just trying to see where I got the ship list, right? So he came from India. They came in 1873. And when they came to South Africa, and then he had 4 children, and they owned a shop, and in Edendale. And when they split up from the shop, that's when the 2 brothers went into farming, and that's how my mom ended up on the farm. So from the time they came from India, they were business people and business minded, and that's why my mom also followed the business route.
Right. Do you know where they came from in India? Which village?
They also came from Uttar Pradesh. They came from a little village near Varanasi.
Okay. All right.
And
the farm that she grew up on, what was it? Was it agricultural products or animal husbandry?
No. It was agriculture, right? And they also had an orchard where they sold fruits.
I see.
And then my grandfather was also, he ran a taxi service and he ran a postal service. So he was quite a good entrepreneur.
Now, interestingly, I want to come back to Daddy now.
Yes.
There is a little bit, there's a little bit that you've written here that your father was a healer.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Now, to come to the healer, my father was he had a guru. He trained under the guru, and he had a book called Hanuman Jyotis, right? And he read the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, and other religions. And every Tuesdays, he was a Pakka Hanuman devotee. He used to read the Hanuman Chalisa and Hanuman Ashtak every Tuesdays. And we were inspired by him. Now he, over the years, I don't know what you'd call it, Siddhi powers or what, you find that when, like particularly in maternity cases, we didn't have a hospital in Burnside, right? because the hospital was far away, about 20 kilometers away. So they had what they called, the ladies that die, or some senior ladies who could help with the childbirth and so forth. Now, when a female had a problem in childbirth and so forth, they came to my father, and my father, with his mantras and so forth, he blessed the water and gave it to them, and everything turned out okay after that. And then when people, like one person who was a Christian who lost his horse, so he tried and looked everywhere for it in Belsa, this was, but they couldn't find it. So somebody suggested to him to come and see my father, and he was a Christian man. So he came to my father, and my father opened that book called Hanuman Jyotis and checked, and he told him, he says, according to the book, you must move in a particular direction. Keep moving, and this thing, after two, you'll get one. So he's wondering, what happened? I lost only one horse. What are you talking about? Two. He says, I'm telling you what the book said. You go and do that. The next day, he sent his workers out to look for the horse, and he found that was a mare. It had foaled, and that foal had died, and that mare was standing next to that foal. And they found it, and they brought it back. And as I told you, that he was a Christian man. And so he asked my father, now how much do I pay you for helping me to find my horse? Because it's a very prized possession of mine. Then my father said, no, you don't have to pay me anything, because I didn't find it for you. God helped you to find it. Now what you do is, if you want to, go to the temple and put how much of money you want to in that container over there that will be used for prayers. Okay?
Very nice. So did your father ever teach you how he did these things, or did he pass on the books to you?
Right, now I'll tell you what had happened.
Yeah,
Right.
which book he used.
Now I told you that the Hanuman Jyotis he used, and then he had a guru in his earlier years, and he learned some mantras and so forth from his guru. I remember once an uncle of mine was injured very badly on his hand, and he was very painful, and he went to the local pub to have a good drink so he could get rid of the pain. But he came to my house about 9 o'clock in the evening, and he told my father, and I was still sitting there with my father. He came and told my father that, see, I went there to the bar to have a drink so that I can get rid of the pain. But he told my father, he said, Baba, this is very, very painful. I can't bear it. So my father told me, sit down here, I will attend to you. And I remember clearly my mother took out 3 sticks from the hand broom, right? And he made it into a shape of a fan, and he mumbled some mantras and so forth. I don't know what he said, right? I don't know the thing. And after about 5 minutes, the pain was gone, and that uncle of mine never experienced that pain again, and until the injuries got better.
Wow, that's an incredible story.
Now, by the way, you asked me if my father taught me any of these things. I observed him carefully as a little boy. Okay. And my father used to sing 5 bhajans you know what I'm talking about, bhajans?
Yes.
Religious songs. Okay.
Yes.
My father sang 5 bhajans in the morning before he went to work. And in the evening, when he came back, he sang another 5 bhajans. And we had a small piece of ground a little distance away from our home, where we did a bit of gardening, where we grew mealies, the corn and beans, to help to augment our the meager salary that my father is saying. And I'll sing you a little bit of the song that my father used to sing. Is that be okay with you?
That's great, and that would be a wonderful way to end. I really appreciate all the information that you shared. So you go ahead and sing.
Right. I'll just sing a little bit of it because I don't know the whole thing. Right. Now he sang that bhajans that were particularly related to the morning time, and then in the evening he sang bhajans that were good for the evening time. Like one of the bhajans that he sang in the morning was जगमग है उठे महल जगमई जानकी जगमग है उठे महल जगमई जानकी जानकी के उठे महल किधर हुई बानकी जगमग है उठे महल जगमई जानकी. Now, my father explained that to us, that Mother Janki was referring to Mother Sita and telling Mother Sita that see, the palace, everybody in the palace have got up, and it's time you also got up. And in the evening, I'll give you one example of a bhajan. Will that be all right?
Yes, thank you.
में आज की आनंद भाई है अयोध्या जी में आज की आनंद भाई है आनंद भाई है आनंद भाई है अयोध्या जी में आज की आनंद भाई है. But Ajoddha ji is referring to Avodhya, is that right?
Okay. So
By the way, before I carry on, now that I sang a little bit, now remember my favorite singers were Muhammad Rafi and Latha, okay, belonging to this generation, and I used to sing mostly Muhammad Rafi songs and like Latha's songs. Bachpan ki mohabbat ko. I just sang that little bit.
I love that. I love that. That's one of my favorites too.
Oh, you also love that song?
Yes, that's one of my favorites too. So go ahead, you sing. You sing it.
Do you know in which movie this song was from?
I can't remember the movie. I just remember the song.
Right. The movie was by Baura.
Ah, okay.
And a main actor was Bharat Bhushan. So I was a great lover of Latha's singing, but of course I listened to others like Shamsadat Begum and so forth. And then in the early years, they had Zora of Ambala, who used to sing somewhere in the early 40s. And I don't know if you remember a song, Akhiyan mila ke jiya barma ke chale nahi jana. Did you hear the song?
Yes, I remember that, yeah.
And then well, Latha happened to be present there. Latha was a young girl at the time, and Zora of Ambala heard Latha singing a little. She was also practicing, and Zora of Ambala praised Latha. But this was in the early 40s, before Latha came into the limelight. And Zora of Ambala praised her and told her, you're going to be a great singer very well. One day you're going to sing very well. And of course, Latha was being very mad about the thing. She said, no, you must say, thank you, God, for giving me such a wonderful singing voice. Okay?
Excellent. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that analogy with us. That's a wonderful way to end the program. So thank you so much.
Before I conclude, I also like listening to Talat Mahmood, right? Okay. Shamsad Begum, and so many of the other singers. Well, I'm talking about the 50s, 60s, and so forth. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Wonderful. So we'll
I forgot your name. I forgot your name. Just give me a name once again, please.
Shalima.
Shalima.
Yes.
Shalima.
Yes.
All right. Okay. I know early days I had a record company called Shalima around here too, right? And Dr. Kumar, Shalima, thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you.
My experiences. And is there any questions like you like to ask me any further that you're not sure about my whatever I explained?
Well, at this point in time, we would like to end today's interview. And I'm sure we have to have you come back because we want to hear you sing some Talat Mahmood and do some Rafi.
No, Muhammad Rafi. Mostly Muhammad Rafi.
Yeah.
On computer. Right.
So, ladies and gentlemen, there we have it. Mr. Shobalak, you know, there really is no better way to get information than from these elders, straight from them. I am so grateful to have had these conversations. So, Mr. Bustawa from Mauritius, Daddy, Mr. Shahid Mohammed from Trinidad, Dr. Nirmal who was originally South African and then moved to the US, and Mr. Shobalak. One of the comments in the chat just kind of echoed something that we agreed on yesterday, because having heard Mr. Shobalak sing, and now we know that Dr. Nirmal plays the tabla and the harmonium, we're going to really have some program in which we have a face-off. We're going to have these elders do a face-off. Who wants to sing can sing. Who wants to play music, we'll do that. I don't know if we'll get an elder who's going to dance. We can probably do that. But anyways, I want to say thank you all so very much for having shared with us your life and your experiences. It really has been a very, very rich conversation. So at this point in time, I will just turn over to Shakira to close formally today. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Shalma, for being a wonderful moderator as always. And thank you everyone for taking the time to participate. Thank you especially to our elders. As I've said before, this public meeting is being hosted by the Indo-Caribbean Cultural Center and the Amina Ghafoor Institute for the Study of Indentureship and its Legacies, led by Professor David Davidine. Feel free to contact ICC if you wish to publish any books or any reports. And remember that we are asking for you to kindly give us your suggestions as well as donations, and you can contact Dr. Kumar Mahabir for details. Thank you to the advisory and planning team led by Dr. Kumar Mahabir, and to our IT manager behind the scenes, Ravan. Thank you, Ravan Ramsingh, who has been recording the program and will edit and upload it to our website and to YouTube permanently for posterity. Our topic next Sunday will be the recent riots in Suriname, ethnic, economic, or political. Please visit our YouTube channel to see all our past recordings. I am Shakira Mohammed of Trinidad and Tobago saying goodbye. May God bless you all. Dhanyavad.
Thank you all. Thank you all for staying so long and being here with us. And